Can you turn that on? So I'm here to share with you my so-called cumulative experience, and I'm not sure how to share my cumulative experience in 7 minutes. It's actually 7.5, but I'll stop at 7. Okay. All I'm going to show you is 3 or 4 surgeries and tell you what I think works and what doesn't, right? It's not too much or too intensive. The problem with polar cataracts is we all know you've got an abnormal adhesion between the posterior pole of the nucleus and the lens. Not only that, you've got an abnormal fragility of the posterior capsule. Typically, a tear in the polar cataract, as you can see here, occurs as some sort of an intraoperative manipulation unless if present before. Despite doing a viscofluid exchange, how do you know that there is a disturbance in the vitreous? You saw that the tear in the typical spindle-shaped tear became wider. It's always wise to delineate this vitreous that is disturbed. The triamcinolone doesn't stain it, it sticks to it thereby delineating it, and therefore you can make sure therefore that you do not end up missing on any vitreous. The other thing is that often the triamcinolone goes and stains the vitreous within the posterior segment too. It's important to note that we don't keep cutting the vitreous. You cut it first within the incisions, in the AC, in the area of the pupil, and finally in the area of the rent. Once you see the rent coming back to its normal size, you perform a viscofluid exchange. And all of us need to learn, and if you haven't, you must, even in your normal eyes, learn how to place a 3-piece IOL after making your incision to about 3.4 millimeters into the ciliary sulcus. There's no question of ever putting a monofocal lens in the sulcus. Put a 3-piece lens, preferably. I haven't done it here, but you should do an anterior or posterior optic capture. Thereby, you don't need to actually change the IOL power either. Now we know that we can have tears. How is it that we can avert a vitreous disturbance in a patient with a polar cataract? Typically, I have found, despite my low flow settings, and I am one who feels that peristaltic machines actually give me the possibility of doing that. Typically, when you remove the endonucleus, and even more typically when you get to the epinucleus management, you'll see this, there it is smiling at you, the tear in the posterior capsule. What's important then is we don't panic and pull our instruments out of the eye. The gold standard in managing any PCR or a PCR that you see in a polar cataract is not letting the chamber shallow. If you can just about manage to not let the chamber shallow by bringing the source of irrigation, which is the phaco probe, out of the eye, by performing a viscofluid exchange, and I typically like to use a dispersive viscoelastic before I bring the probe out of the eye. Then I find, once I put in a dispersive viscoelastic, 9.5 out of 10, I can still use a bimanual irrigation aspiration to remove the cortex, even if I have a PCR, except that when I'm swapping my hands, I will then again do a viscofluid exchange before swapping my hands. In this interesting case, note I've actually got a partial tear. It's not gone all the way to the other equator. Now, when you're left with a situation like this, polar or otherwise, you have to stabilize the opening before you do anything else. So with the help of an intraocular forceps, even I was surprised, this was my first, wherein I just converted it into a stable opening, after which then you have an option of either putting an IOL in the bag or putting in the 3-piece IOL in the sulcus. I think I managed to put it in the capsular bag here, I think so. Yeah, no. It's in the sulcus, and now I perform a posterior optic capture where you just dip each side on either side and you've got a stable bag. Now, I think this is just to make a point that it's not over till it's over in a polar cataract. All has gone well here. I'm very happy. Does 2 polar cataracts off in a day. I don't know what's happening in Maharashtra. We see a lot of them. And I put in my single-piece monofocal eye in the bag. I'm happy because it's easier than putting in a 3-piece one. But never, and typically I don't go behind the IOL to wash out visco. I do a gentle rock and roll, and I claim to do even gentler rock and roll in a polar cataract. But here, when I'm actually being rather gentle here, and this typically is my slowest step in my phaco. But when I'm just removing the viscoelastic, the mere nudging of the optic posteriorly is enough. Can you see that? There you see. It's actually torn, and the typical spindle is starting out there. So when you have a tear after putting in an IOL, even in a polar cataract, don't worry too much. The point of this video is to let you know that you've got to take utmost care till the very end. Often you may need to even while hydration, you can just rip because of the high pressure there. So it's not over till it's over in polar cataracts. And now the highlight case of mine, if I may have an extra 20 seconds, is the next one, which of course co-managed. I've seen this patient on table and this is what I find. I don't know how many of you have experienced this. Now here you go, you've got a polar cataract with an existing PCR. Seen typically because we tend to operate them earlier, so you can see through and through, or you can diagnose it preoperatively on UBM. Now I've got a tear, how am I going to manage it? So the same basic principles of management. Low flow settings, I will work with a lower flow rate. I believe there's meritocracy in that. I will use only enough energy that I need to impale the nucleus and bring it up. I don't fiddle around with the nucleus in the bag. I try and hold it and bring it up. Utmost care, there it is, the tear which showed to me even before I started the surgery. Again, viscofluid exchange at every step. I couldn't bring out anymore. And typically for my subincisional epinucleus, I tend to draw it out with my non-dominant right hand. I brought it up, removed the last part of the epinucleus. The tear is still showing through, but what's important I'm looking for is, has it splayed open more, signifying the possibility of vitreous prolapsing forward. Now actually it is playing a little more, but truly this is a dispersive viscoelastic. And as I told you that once I put in some dispersive viscoelastic, each and every time I bring my irrigation out to the eye, I end up managing quite easily, because removing the cortex with the eye cut mode of the vitrector is also an option, but I tend to be able to manage it with this. If not, I would use the eye cut of the vitrector. Care and caution while removing the last part of the cortex. Again, swapping hands, performing a viscofluid exchange. And whilst this is going on, the last, while it just ends, I think the question often asked to me is, you put this much visco in the eye, what happens to the pressure post-operatively? There is maybe 1 in 2 in about 10 or 20 patients where I may have some corneal edema. So with a little bit of Dimox, maybe a Dimox ER or IPAR SR, I'm able to just tide that over in about 24 to 48 hours. I believe it's a lot better an option rather than having vitreous being disturbed. I guess with that I come to the end of my presentation. I'm happy to talk now. Thank you.
Excellent cases. Excellent performance, Dr. Suvira. One thing which we do is, while doing normal cataracts, we have a habit of, dialing our nucleus. But in a case of a PPC, dialing the nucleus is absolute no, because that causes a stress in the zonules as well as in the PC, and the rupture can occur. So this one point we have to keep in mind. So no dialing of the nucleus in a PPC. Nucleus in a